Hello everyone, Courtney here. Today, we will go into the world of peak performance, how discipline and motivation overlap, and how developing consistency in your practice leads you to the right mindset to create success. Welcome to episode number 4. Let's get into it.
Where inventing, passion, and hard work intersect. Welcome to the Serial Inventing Podcast. Bite-sized, perspective-altering episodes on serial inventing and beyond. From motivating key tips on product licensing to obstacle-busting conversations on transitioning to a full-time serial product developer. Buckle your seatbelt, because you're in for a ride. Warning, this podcast may motivate you to make wild decisions that will propel you forward in your inventing career and hijack more of your time for your passion. If you aren't ready to make it happen, then this podcast isn't for you.
Often when peak performance is talked about, it is in the context of athletes. Being at your peak performance, trying to get to your peak performance, another athlete's peak performance. The goal is to always compete or perform at your peak performance, as in at the highest level of your own ability. Sometimes we do well at a competition, and we call it one of our peak performances. Now, of course, the ultimate goal would be to always perform at your greatest all the time. When you are an athlete, always performing at your peak is incredibly difficult because it takes a lot of hard work to fire on all cylinders, physically, emotionally, and mentally. Now, the peak of a mountain is very clear to visualize, and the goal is to make an athletic peak just as easy to imagine. Once we have attained peak performance in the past, we know what it feels like. Now, as individuals, we can always make the peak higher by being more efficient, more organized, more centered, more knowledgeable, and so on. The term peak performance is much easier understood in athletic and physical endeavors, and not in many other disciplines, let alone business. But the concept provides a very profound framework that I think we should consider. When you understand how to pitch a product idea, and you've got the steps down to a T, eventually, you get in the groove with knowing what to do when you're pitching, what scripts to use when, how to stay organized, when to respond. It all becomes easy when you're doing it habitually. Pitching again and again for many years on many products as a serial inventor. You find your flow. The hard part is always making sure that your flow state is equal to your peak state. It's easy to eat bad food or binge watch a show when it becomes habitual. You do it again and again, and you start to make it your default. You resonate within that field. Just because you can jump into that state easily doesn't mean that it's healthy. You know eating junk food is bad, and binge watching a show most likely won't propel your career forward. It's a bit harder to discern in business when, for example, the pitching tactics you use that have now become habit may not be good habits. You want to do your best to always be honest with yourself and consider if your current habits are habits that help you operate at your peak. Evaluate, reevaluate. One way to test your habits is to explain what your inventing habits are to a person so you can hear yourself describe them and see if they make sense. It makes the internal dialogue external. You look at the habits from a third-party viewpoint when you don't feel as close to them, kind of like you are teaching them to someone. It's irrelevant if the person understands licensing or not, as they are there as your mirror, so you can introspect. Also, having someone watch you perform your habit can be beneficial as well. It's hard to always be at your best every single second of every single day in your regular life. It is mentally exhausting. Like in a video game, we only have so many power points for each day, and not enough to be at our peak 24/7 in all aspects of our life. I get it. We are human. When you are pitching products in the licensing industry, constantly operating at peak performance level is incredibly important. It is far easier to operate at a high level in a niche area. Athletes do it, so why can't we? I'm a second degree blue belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. We often talk about peak performance at my dojo and how to get there. That includes thinking about all aspects of your life: how to not overtrain, how to cross train over multiple disciplines, how to stay flexible, how to stay healthy, repair your body, stay focused, and how to eat properly. While scrolling through a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Instagram feed, I was stopped dead in my tracks by a conversation with author and BJJ black belt Jocko Willink. He was explaining the difference between motivation and discipline. He stated that motivation comes and goes, that you'll have it at times, and other times you won't. I like to call it the roller coaster effect. Sometimes you love your product, and sometimes you want to light it on fire and chuck it out a window. When you are a serial inventor, you get used to getting many, many no's. You become a bit numb to them in a good way. That's the great thing about doing something again and again and getting better at it. You grow, your perspective shifts. The things that bothered you before don't anymore, but you still have to deal with the roller coaster. You are still on it. That doesn't go away. You just become aware of it. Jocko continued to state that by simply knowing that motivation will always come and go gives you a leg up. It puts into perspective what you really need to rely on: discipline. Discipline, regardless of your motivation level, is key. Because if you are only doing things when you are motivated, you're missing out on a lot of time to create your success. It is discipline and trust in the process that will get you to your end goal: your products on store shelves. You have to create that discipline. Often that means learning how the mind and brain works and using technical tactics to get you through those times you are not motivated. Sometimes you have to play games with yourself, in a way, to create a good habit, such as eating a healthier version of what you really want to eat. You trick your mind into doing something good for your body by slowly replacing the bad things with the good things until you find equilibrium again and have created the habit you were looking for. Find what tactics work for you. We will discuss those tactics in a different episode, but to give you a place to start, here are two. Some serial inventors may have one day a week where your family and friends know that it's your serial inventing day. They cannot bug you that entire day, nor can you schedule anything for that day. It is fully blocked off. Think of this as your dream day, your day in the life of a full time inventor. In MMA, we call this a dream fight. Visualizing and practicing in a perfect world, how would you like to take your opponent down? How would you like to spend your day inventing as a full time inventor? Get a bulletproof coffee in the morning at your local coffee shop? Take a walk to get inspiration and your creativity flowing? Pitch until lunchtime? Eat lunch outside in the sun? Work on market research and sell sheets in the afternoon? I could go on and on. I like to call this tactic your dream inventing day. Another tactic to stay focused during your busy week is to use a time management tool, such as the Pomodoro method. When you are a serial inventor, you are doing a mentally athletic endeavor, and you should treat it as if you are a mental athlete. This means you have days of gaining knowledge, practicing technique, and drilling, days of rest, and days of competition. The goal is to always compete at your highest level, as in your peak performance level. In our world, that often means how you communicate with potential licensees, make sell sheets and virtual prototypes, and perform your market research. You are an athlete of business. I think it's about time we said we were. I think there is a level of seriousness that is not fully understood in the licensing industry. Licensing is not a get rich quick scheme. It is a lot of hard work that is being driven by our passion. You have to find what works for you to get to your peak performance level. And that means a lot of trial and error, flexibility, and many different resources and tactics to utilize and play with. It takes time. And just because it works now doesn't mean it will work later. Just like in an athletic competition, such as an MMA fight or a match of tennis, you have many different competitors. Some will be fighting harder than you and finding more tools that work for them quicker. Some will be doing it more as a career than a hobby, which means if you are spending 3 hours a week at licensing as your hobby, there are others out there that are spending 10 to 20 hours a week at licensing as their career. How do you compete with that without making sacrifices to your regular job or family that you don't want to make? You either decide to use licensing as a creative self expression outlet and be okay with slow or no success, or you decide, as the serial inventor that you are, that sacrifices need to be made to win. Time is the ultimate sacrifice, and the more time you sacrifice, the higher chance you have to succeed. Luckily, hard work, dedication, and discipline almost always supersedes talent. You can only go so far on talent, but you can't outgrow hard work. Though getting good quickly will lead you to your success faster, licensing is a long game, and we need to remember and act like it is. Not every competitor or licensee will be the same, or even give you the same advice. It's important to change your tactics and or your product based on getting a large amount of feedback, not just one or two potential licensees. Just because you've lost against a really phenomenal and talented competitor doesn't mean that the rest are like that. Make sure you use your time wisely. Be consistent and only change your tactic or product when you get a fair amount of feedback that tells you it's not working. Take your time. Observe. We are not in a rush. Licensing is a marathon, whether you have one product or many. Just like the tortoise, if you have endurance, discipline, proper pacing, and patience, you will win. So if you are serious about the licensing game, put on your thinking cap, twist your mental spin dial to determined and disciplined, and get those gears turning. Because if you want to be an Olympian in licensing, then you need to start performing like one. What is one action you're going to take this week to help you develop peak performance habits? Thanks for tuning in and taking a few bites with me today. And remember, serial inventors don't make excuses, they make it happen. See you soon.